Welcome to Front and Center, from political battlefields to cooperative playing fields. That's our focus, and that's our drive. Hopefully you'll get some important updates today from Steve and I of some of the things that are going on in our world. I'm still working away on the Kennedy campaign, but that obviously you should all be aware of, that Kennedy has suspended his campaign, in essence, has ended his campaign, and now is part of the unity government aligned with Trump. And we're asking all of those who are comfortable voting for Trump or Kennedy to absolutely, no matter where you are, vote for Trump first. If you're in a heavy Democrat state, then please feel free to go and vote for Kennedy, because we want to get in that 5% to make sure that we get some of those election funds available to help the independent movement continue to grow and prosper after this election. And he needs to get nationally 5% of the vote to do that. But one of the things I want to talk about, Steve, before we go too far, is I'm still out involved here in Orange County, San Diego, and LA counties doing events. For example, last Saturday, we did our 19th banner hanging event in San Clemente over the 5 freeway since the middle of May. I think we've made every single weekend. I've been there at all but about 4 of them with volunteers getting the banners out. We're now on our 4th iteration of banners, and we're going to change those. And starting this weekend, we've got a new set of banners that I'm going to share my screen real quick. I hadn't mentioned this to you, Steve. I hope it's okay. But I want to share my screen and show people, because we've migrated from obviously Kennedy for president. The banners we're using now is the message focused on those 40+% of our state that are Democrats, and those other people who are unsure, who think of themselves as independents or NPP in California, which means no party preference. Focus on how to get them to at least listen to Kennedy, if they're willing to listen to Kennedy, and begin to see and hear about the issues of significance and why he has unified with Trump and moved over to assist him to get elected after the censorship that blocked his campaign. So this weekend, we're going to have 3 new banners that we're going to show. And I'm going to show you real quickly on here what those look like. So now we have 3 banners, and they work as a team. They're 4 foot by 8 foot, so that we'll cover the side of a freeway. So I've got 2 sets of these that are the same on both sides. So we'll be able to cover a 6-lane in each direction freeway with 32 feet of banners and windows in between these for our volunteers to wave at the motorists, the commuters, to get their attention. The first one on the one side says, "Make America Healthy Again."
Now, are you showing the banners? Because I'm not seeing them. You should be sharing your screen. Nope.
There you go.
There we go. There we have it. Okie dokie.
That is a 8 foot wide banner, 4 foot tall. You can see that from a good quarter of a mile plus away. So make America great, make America healthy again. MAHA, which is the focus of all of the Kennedy effort, but it's also now becoming part of the focus of the entire campaign. And the next one that we have that'll be in the middle is the next focus, which is Vote Peace. Trump plus Kennedy. That is the message, that is, we're moving so close to this new acceleration of these wars, the forever wars. And then the third one in the series is exactly to that: end forever wars. So that's what we'll be starting with Friday over the Culver Boulevard overpass over the 405 freeway here in Orange County. Saturday, it'll be down in San Clemente. Sunday, it's going to be at an event in Laguna Beach, down at Main Beach there, and we'll be using these banners and ordering more of them throughout the state to focus on that issue of heal America in these forever wars and the unity ticket. So that's what we're working on now. So Saturday, that's what we're doing. Sunday, I was down at one of 4 events in San Diego, and I went and helped out the team at the Poway Street Fair, which was a huge street fair in Poway. I mean, I think we were number 346. I think there's something like 600 booths that were in this street fair. It was massive. And heck, I got there at 8 a.m. in Poway. It didn't start until 10. But by 9:30, there was tons of people coming through already. Most of the booths were all set up. And we started engaging with the people that would come by. And we kind of classify people. And this is what part of my job in talking to some of the volunteers is to help them kind of identify by starting with a question to get a sense of the people as they would come by us, look at us, depending on the look of their face, try to judge where they're coming from and meet them where they are. And that's the most important thing about trying to, our job now as we see it is trying to convert those few remaining people who haven't made their decision, but those people who are, if you will, refer to them as soft Democrats, who see the corruption of their own party, who see the uniparty, who see those people that they used to call every bad name that they could think of, that now are part of the Harris team, the Dick Cheneys, the Bush's organizations, etc. Try to meet them where they are and try to help them understand how to engage them, how to engage people who come from various perspectives. And the one thing I always suggest to the volunteers is if they say, I could never vote for Trump, the reaction is to look them in the eye and say, I'm not voting for Trump. I'm voting to end these forever wars. I'm voting to heal America. And then you can go down the litany and then ask them questions, what's important to them, and then start a conversation focused on the issues, not on personalities. So that's kind of just a brief update there, Steve, on what we're doing here in the campaign. And Sunday we'll have a anti-war demonstration down there in Laguna Beach. And so these are the ongoing efforts of the campaign. So what's been happening in your world in the last few days?
Well, thanks, Michael, for the work that you're doing and being out there engaging with people. That's really where it's happening. There's so little trust in our society related to the media, whether that be the legacy media or even the alternative media, that when you get to meet people face to face and have conversations and truly listen, that's the foundation of a new trust networks that are going to have to be built from the grassroots up. Like yourself, my main concern is censorship now. And again, we hear from all of my good friends on the progressive side are talking about the existential issues, like, for example, the women's right to choose, fact that we have a president, a president candidate, Donald Trump, who people are concerned he's going to set himself up as a dictator, that the January 6th for these people is a existential threat to democracy. And so I want to talk about another existential threat to democracy. I want to go back and tell a story. It was December of 2008. Bruce Lipton and I were finishing the last chapter in our book, Spontaneous Evolution. Obama had just been elected. I just came back I went to Washington, D.C. maybe a week or two after the Obama election, and I would have to say that literally there was dancing in the streets. People were so happy to be done with Bush Cheney, to be done with weapons of mass distraction and the Iraq War and all of that there was truly a feeling of burgeoning joy in this country. So Bruce and I wrote in Spontaneous Evolution, in our last chapter, that the sign that this evolutionary awareness was coming to fruition was the fact that we elected Barack Obama president. And a few weeks later, we had sent the book to a number of our colleagues to read, and one of Bruce's colleagues shook her head, no, you guys are wrong. You should not be writing this. You're narrowing your audience, and it's not right. And Bruce and I looked at each other and went, we could not fathom anybody being an evolutionary who is not on board with this progressive narrative and so on. And we just could not believe it, that there was somebody who was with us in spirit, but was a Republican. This was only 15 years ago, right? So I'm using that as a preface, and then I began working with Joseph McCormick, one of the great transpartisan pioneers. He and I wrote a little ebook called Reuniting America, and he told me, he said, he told me that his issue with progressives is that one of the reasons why conservatives did not really want to engage with some of these transpartisan things is that they felt that progressives were not listening to them, that progressives already were so convinced that they were right that there's no need for further conversation. And I've watched this unfold over the years. And for me, the epiphany was, in the 2020 and 2021 and 2022, during the COVID crisis, as the vaccines were being promoted, I realized that we're being lied to. Everything that I was reading and seeing on in mainstream media contradicted what I knew in my heart to be true. My experience, the people that I listen to and have kept my wife and I healthy and safe for the past 30 or 40 years was being contradicted. And I'm noticing that all my progressive friends in zombie-like fashion are going along with this narrative. So here we are. I know that we're going to post as part of this podcast. We're going to post a link to John Kerry's remarks last week at the World Economic Forum, basically saying that the First Amendment is in the way. The First Amendment is an obstacle in these times, and we don't really need it anymore. And
Steve, he gets harsher than that. And yeah, we posted that last episode, but we're going to post it again because it's important for people here. No, he says we have to hammer it out. We have to hammer out these opposing views.
And so what I realized, the existential crisis for democracy, more than a president more than January 6th even, more than that, the existential crisis is the loss of freedom of speech. That is the true existential crisis for democracy. And until now, I'd say a lot of my progressive colleagues have gone along with this idea, which is part of the progressive programming, I think, that because we are right, because we have science on our side, as if, follow the science, like one would say, follow the religion. It's kind of a new religion. Because we are right, then we don't need to listen to these other points of view. And that is the wall that we're up against at this point. And I want to, in my post this week, I want to share that we need that. Because again, first they came for the anti-vaxxers, then they came for the pro-Trumpers, and then pretty soon there's going to be no free speech for anybody. And these people who, were the champions of the free speech movement, were the champions of our body, ourselves, all of a sudden, they're going to be deplatformed with everybody else.
Let me interrupt you for a second here, Steve, because for many people in the audience, particularly those, the biggest part of censorship is what you don't hear. And so most of my friends who are in that narrative, they have no clue about censorship. They don't understand it. They don't see it around them. They don't know it exists, because that is the effective use of censorship, is the suppression of the opposing point of view. in my, and for people to help them understand censorship, even at a level of myself, just a grassroots activist out here, I've had 4 experiences in my 12-year, well, 14, we're in my 15th year, existence as an activist. I've got 4 examples I'd like to share with our audience of censorship on a low scale. And then I'll give a couple of examples on a major scale. But in 2011, when we founded Rebellious Truths, the fact that we were Rebellious Truths and our slogan was bringing the light to truth, seeking justice for all, and we were trying to do it to start Rebellious Truths was there because we wanted to peel back the layers and expose deep truths. And for people in the audience, most few people know that one of the original definitions in Greek of apocalypse, as it was meant in the times of the Greeks, was the unveiling of truths hidden. The unveiling of truths hidden. And that's what we're in the middle of, truly an apocalypse, with truths being revealed to people that have been hidden. And that's why these people are so afraid. And that we'll get to in a second. But back to the examples I want to give. So in 2010, we launched. In March of 2011, we hired one of the top firms in Southern California to get nonprofit status. Our attorney on getting that for us sat on the advisory board for the IRS for nonprofits. So he said, "Oh, it's a slam dunk with what you guys are doing. No problem. We'll have you in your nonprofit status in 2, maximum 3 months, 90 days max." Well, that was in March of 2011. We were given our nonprofit status the last week of October 2012, 2 weeks before the election. So that was the first experience with censorship. And the way I know it was censored is because when Trump became president, if you remember, Steve, and those in our audience, there was this release of this fact that the IRS under Obama, under before Obama, but was used to block nefarious groups that were against the government, et cetera, et cetera. And when a list came out, we were 120th or something on this list. And I got a letter 4 years ago from the IRS, director of the IRS, an apology letter that we had been blocked for excessively 16 months in getting our nonprofit status, and a check for $14,400 along with this apology letter. So that was the first time I knew I had been followed since I started Rebellious Truths. The next time I was censored, and knowingly, was 3-4 years ago when I was one of the founders of the Common Sense Party here in California, seeking to establish a new official party in the state of California. I had my email address that I used for politics was the Rebel for Truth. It was mmaxeni@rebelfortruth.org, which I own that URL through GoDaddy, etc. All of a sudden, one day, I get a note from one of my friends on my personal email. "Hey, this bounced back." I went and checked. All of Rebel for Truth's email account had been deleted off of Google, Gmail, deleted. I then asked our tech team for Common Sense Party to go to work on it. They got frustrated as heck after about 4 weeks of trying. They gave up, said, "We couldn't get anywhere with Google. We couldn't get any answers. We don't know what to do." I then was part of the Forward leadership team here in California as the state lead in the region of that, and asked them to do the same. They went after it for 4 or 5 weeks, gave up. Then I tried again with 10 to 20 hours worth of phone calls. So that was the second time we got to him. All of my 7,000 plus contacts that I'd made up over 10 to 12 years working in the reform sector of the politics, gone. All gone, unrecoverable. All my emails, all my contacts, gone. The third example of censorship was our show. The only show Front and Center has gotten censored on and it was only censored on YouTube, not on Rumble or not on any of the other channels, was our podcast that we did with Mark Chapin Miller, who is a world-renowned expert on propaganda and censorship. That was the only one we got censored from YouTube. Remember that? And
I know. Mark Crispin Miller being the guy that wrote the introduction to the 2004 edition of Edward Bernays' book, Propaganda, and who got deplatformed by his by NYU, where he teaches. As part of his class on propaganda, he offered some information that contradicted the masking mandate. He didn't say don't wear a mask. He just said, well, notice these studies. They deplatformed him for hate speech.
Yep.
So what we have to understand is the nefarious ways that this system, and we're going to call it a uniparty system. It's not about just the Democrats, just the Republicans. That's why Dick Cheney and Kamala Harris are on the same team right now.
Well, the fourth example that I've lived was May 19th. I'm in Denver, or September 19th. I'm in Denver at the Independent National Movements Conference. And I was showing a videographer. He wanted to see a couple of videos from Rebellious Truths. We watched two of the videos that went viral, which were #1 on YouTube in the political sector. And he watched those and went, wow. So then I get an email from him on Monday, 4 days later. Mike, I went to share those videos of Rebellious Truths with a friend here in New York, and this is what I got. And he sent me a screen capture. Videos no longer available. The uploader of this content has closed their YouTube account. I immediately went to my YouTube, where I have had 3 channels, Rebellious Truths, front and center, and my personal account. Rebellious Truths was gone. 23 videos that had been up there since 2011, 12, and 13, gone. Everything from YouTube gone. So that's the depth of the censorship that they do, down to somebody like myself. So when you hear about what went on with Ross Perot, that he was on 34 interviews in 10 months on the 3 plus CNN mainstream media. Kennedy was on 2 not on primetime videos. It's what you don't hear. And then the dialing down of and taking away of all of these people's YouTube channels, Instagrams, etc. That's the censorship that people aren't aware of. So I hope that helps open up a few eyes to how it impacts somebody like myself, to on a massive scale like a Robert Kennedy and so many others.
Years ago, I wrote an article that got me in trouble. It was an article about Fox News and how they were lying, and it was called "Come On, Baby, Fight My Liar." And as a side comment afterward, I said, well, obviously, it looks like people on the right like being lied to, whereas people on the left prefer lying to themselves. And I got in trouble for that. But it really applies, because what happens is what you don't see. It's like I call it not-seeism, where you choose to not see what's too uncomfortable to look at. And I think part of the great problem that we've had since the John F. Kennedy assassination is the unwillingness for people to look into the dark corners because it's too threatening and too frightening. And what happens when you don't look there, and you basically get what we have right now that the Democrats are presenting is a Hollywood facade. It's just a facade. It's just a show. And if people go, you know what, I'd rather not know how bad things are. I'd rather not know the truth. I'd rather that they simply they can deplatform all of these other people, because that's not my concern. They're probably people who are I'll believe what they say, that they're spreading disinformation. And this is, again, as I was telling my brother the other day, being a Democrat, it's in our DNA. I mean, my dad and mom, New Deal Democrats. They voted Republican once for Mayor LaGuardia, who was running against the corrupt Tammany Hall machine, and for mayor. And at this point, I'm really seeing that the side that I have sided with, and I've used that that excuse. Swami would say, "Well, as I pull the lever once again for the team that it's Lucy pulling the football away from Charlie Brown one more time. I go, well, I'd rather have positive change in very, very small increments than negative change in very large excrement, right? So I think we're up to our waist in excrement right now, and I think that the requirement right now is to simply create some daylight. Otherwise, this totalitarian system is only going to somebody calls it turnkey totalitarianism. I call it soft cloth tyranny, but it's the same thing under the nice face of the Democratic Party and this faux compassion that they have.
Oh, joy! It's joy.
It's joy. Well, I'll tell you, it's time if we're talking about household products, maybe it's time for Tide.
That was something rebellious truths we used to say all the time. We have to wash the system clean. You're never going to wash it perfect because human nature, there's always going to be corruption, self-serving. There's always going to be people who can't speak the truth, etc. But you can wash the system, and it needs to be washed regularly so that it can stay as clean as possible, to function as well as possible, to serve the greatest public good. One of the things that I know that why so many people are showing their heads now with this uniparty, you've got people like Hillary Clinton, who just came out on a podcast. I'm trying to remember what it was, but we'll post it into the link, where she just came out and said openly in a podcast, we have to censor speech or we will lose total control.
There we have it.
Just the other
Couldn't
day.
be said more clearly. Couldn't be said more clearly. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. And yeah.
Yeah, she said that. And then you've got this, John Kerry famously saying on the speech at the WFF, World Economic Forum, how we have to hammer it out of existence. The biggest block for our ability to gain consensus is the free speech and the First Amendment, and we have to hammer it out of existence. You've got the woman, and again, I'm going to post up in our show notes. So I hope people will go to the show notes afterwards, because there's going to be a few podcasts that I'm going to post there that'll help you see it. Another one that was just released called I refer to as Just Tell Me the Truth, which a guy goes through the blatant lies that the media and the parties have been using against Trump. Now, we all know Trump has a loose cannon mouth, and Trump drives me crazy because, and for all of our volunteers, it was such a difficult pill to go from somebody like Robert Kennedy, who gives such detailed contextual answers.
Yeah.
Somebody like Trump, who shoots from the hip, exaggerates often, says all kinds of ugly stuff.
Yeah.
But still,
if he would take a vow of silence between now and the election, he could win. That's our petition. It's for Trump to take a vow of silence until the election, similar to what Kamala is doing, by the way. Just kind of make sure that, she's actually making sure that her comments are managed so that people don't really get to see who she, her competence is, people are really not talking about what would it be like to have her as commander-in-chief. And I would have to say that behind the scenes, the people who are pulling the strings behind the scenes are the people who do not want human beings to rule. They do not want us to have our freedoms. They're not on our side. And it's very hard to see that, because we want to believe. It's very hard to look at. I want to ask people, go watch the interview that we did with Tom Hartman, where he talks about Wetiko. Wetiko being the evil, cannibalism. It was native people here in this country. It was a term that they used to describe the the conquistadors who came over here. The book was called Columbus and Other Cannibals, and this cannibalization that is behind the nice face of that particular party. It's hard for me to say these things because uh, I know that there's people that are going to be watching this. They're going to go, "Has he gone over to the dark side?" But I have a feeling that this is the new light side, as everything is turned upside down. That's where the peace candidate is. That's where the Make America Healthy candidate is, and we have to allow ourselves to have this chaos in order for the coherence to show up, a new level of coherence.
Yeah, the inversion of the principles of these two parties has been amazing. One last point about what these people are afraid of and why they're one of the many reasons they're fighting so darn hard to keep Trump and a Trump unity government from taking control is because of the apocalypse, of the unveiling of the truths that they don't want us to know about. And one of the most embarrassing ones is almost so many of those who reside on those Epstein lists
Yeah.
and visited Epstein Island, that they would be embarrassed as heck with their family, with their church organizations that they so like to go to, and think of themselves as these wonderful human beings. So we could go on about this for a long time. I think one of the things I would like to suggest is for our next podcast next week is to delve into a little bit of Charles Eisenstein, who offers a real lantern for our times for us to navigate towards through this ugliness. His most recent podcast or article that he just wrote on Substack and on his website, how do you get people to care about making changes that don't directly benefit them? Because these people that are sitting there in their comfort zone, sitting there, as you said earlier today, Steve, talking about how comfortable they are, that's okay, go do that to them. That's right, because it doesn't affect them. But how to approach them and how to get them to see it. So that's something I hopefully we'll get into in more in depth next week. So hopefully for all of you there watching, thank you so much. We know we've been shadow banned, but you're available besides YouTube. You're available on Rumble and Spotify and these others. So Steve, do you want to say anything in closing? Otherwise, we've got a lot to talk about next week as well.
This is looking forward to what's going to happen next year. One of these candidates is going to win. And regardless of that, what really needs to happen is a front and center movement of the people in this country, a truly independent movement. I know that Christopher Life and his group, the Independent National Conference, now it's a new name, that is really a beacon for us. We need to create a sane and sacred spiritual center in this country, bigger than religion and non-religion. That's really what we have to do, and recognize that the American evolution is about we the people becoming the citizens that are capable of self-governance. And that is a 4-step program: wake up, wise up, grow up, and show up. So regardless, that is the movement that's going to transform this country.
That's a perfect place to close. Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you all for watching. Again, we're front and center with Steve and Michael, from political battlefields to cooperative playing fields. It's a long journey, my friends. Let's go there together. Thank you so much.